My next Patreon question is from Sonia, who wants me to compare two popular animated films made by the same filmmaking team. Which is better, Lilo and Stitch or How to Train Your Dragon? Both movies, besides being directed by Chris Sanders, are about a young human who is something of a misfit in their community, befriending a fantastical creature. I'm immensely fond of both movies, and think Chris Sanders and DeBlois did a lovely job of telling these stories. Before I reveal my verdict of which I prefer, I'm going to analyze the similarities between the two, and what makes them stand out at their respective animation studios. What helps make both films work is how they depict the two main characters connecting through their shared outsider status. For example, Lilo is coping with not having her parents, and the difficulty of having her sister Nani raising her alone, and how this affects her behavior. Meanwhile, Stitch was created to destroy and wreak havoc, and it's somehow through these two meeting that they eventually find some form of peace. Stitch learns there's more to the world than simply being a nuisance, while Lilo finds a new extended family through Stitch and eventually Jamba Pleakley and Nani's boyfriend David. In How to Train Your Dragon, we see the unique bond created between Hiccup and Toothless. There's initially trepidation on both sides, but it's through one learning from the other that they connect. Toothless, being a lone night fury, is what sets him apart from the other dragons, while Hiccup is seen as useless by his fellow Vikings. In the end, they help each other with the problems facing their respective communities. Something admirable about both films is how Sanders and DeBlois were not afraid of making their lead characters quirky. Lilo is one of the most unique Disney heroines, even right down to her design. There are children out there like this, who have their own interests and their own creative views of the world. I love the fact that she listens to Elvis Presley records, and that she gives a sandwich to a fish in the opening scene to keep the weather under control. Those elements I just mentioned are not merely there to make her the outsider. They actually serve a thematic purpose. With Hiccup, Jay Baruchel was cast to do his voice, and the decision works in making him seem more like an outsider. Everyone else in the village speaks in gruff, lower-pitched voices. Meanwhile, Hiccup is more on the nasally and high-pitched side to reflect the way everyone else sees it. The movie depicts him as mainly interested in engineering, and we see the important role this plays in the plot and why he actually makes a good strategist when leading the other young Vikings in the climax. Meanwhile, Stitch and Toothless look very similar, which is understandable, as Chris Sanders likes to use oval-shaped heads for otherworldly creatures. The animators did an amazing job of bringing both of them to life, using mostly their expressions to communicate. The eyes and ears are especially important in showing their emotions, and the filmmakers also took a lot of inspiration from real-life animals. Stitch is appropriately modeled after dogs, while Toothless moves like a cat. Music is also an important element of both movies, and why they work so well. Alan Silvestri's score for Lilo and Stitch hits the right emotional beats, while he brings the required energy for the action scenes. The use of Elvis songs and original tunes performed by an Hawaiian children's choir add a lot to the film's atmosphere, and John Powell's score for How to Train Your Dragon is one of my favorites ever written for an animated film. So which do I prefer? Well, I like both a lot, but I have to go with Lilo and Stitch. It's actually one of my favorite movies of all time. Both films are admittedly fascinating for their places in the histories of Disney and DreamWorks animation respectively. Lilo and Stitch is honestly like no other film in the Disney animated canon, and I've long felt if you take out the aliens, it's the most realistic film the studio has ever produced. It's why I always reject the notion that Disney should always stick to making certain kinds of animated films as defined by their legacy, because if they did that, Lilo and Stitch would never exist. And How to Train Your Dragon proves DreamWorks may be known for quippy comedies, but they are just as good at exciting and dramatic adventures. It's why I dislike when people derisively refer to something as, this is like a DreamWorks movie, because they have made some beautiful films over the years, including How to Train Your Dragon. Anyway, let me know in the comments which movie you prefer, and thank you for your question, Sonia.